Operação entre Brasil e Burkina.
We're honored to receive Burkina Faso's gold shipment, a Brazilian official said. This marks a new era of partnership between Brazil and Africa. President Ibrahim Traoré's decision to trade directly with us strengthens South-South cooperation and shows Africa's growing independence from former colonial powers.
What if I told you that a single plane, loaded with gold from the heart of West Africa, has just rewritten the rules of global trade? What if I told you that the destination wasn't Paris, wasn't London, wasn't Brussels, but Brazil? Yes, Brazil, and the man behind this game-changing move? None other than Captain Ibrahim, the revolutionary young leader of Burkina Faso who is rapidly becoming the face of Africa's economic independence. For decades, Europe has held a tight grip on Africa's gold, dictating prices, controlling exports, and pocketing the biggest profits. But this time, didn't just say no, he acted. He signed a gold export agreement with Brazil, bypassing the European market entirely. And in doing so, he sent a clear message to the world. Africa will decide who it trades with and on its own terms. This is not just about gold. This is about breaking chains that have held Africa in economic submission for generations. Today on Afrique Vibe News, we dive deep into the full story, how this deal came to be, why it matters, and what it means for the future of Africa's place in the global economy. Stay with me because by the end of this documentary, you'll see why this isn't just a gold shipment. It's the beginning of a new world order. On a bright morning in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, the airport runway was busier than usual. Cameras rolled, soldiers stood in neat formation, and in the middle of it all a heavily guarded cargo plane gleamed under the sun. Its cargo? Burkina Faso's gold, freshly refined and packed into secured containers. For decades, this scene would have played out with the gold headed to Europe, specifically to refineries in Switzerland, France, or Belgium. But today's flight plan had a very different destination, São Paulo, Brazil. This wasn't just a business transaction, it was a political statement. Ibrahim had spent months preparing this move, behind closed doors. His economic advisors and foreign ministry negotiated directly with Brazil, a fellow member of BRICS, the emerging bloc of countries challenging Western economic dominance. Some might wonder why Brazil of all countries. The answer lies in a shared vision. Brazil, under President Lula da Silva, has been pushing for South-South cooperation, a trade and development strategy that strengthens ties between nations of the global South, bypassing the economic dependence on Europe and North America. Brazil has world-class gold processing facilities and an appetite for raw materials that match its growing industrial needs. More importantly, it has no colonial history in Africa that would complicate relations. 4. This was an opportunity to sell gold without the political strings that often come with European buyers. And for Brazil, this was a chance to strengthen its supply chain while building diplomatic goodwill in Africa. To understand how significant this is, we have to look at history. Burkina Faso, formerly known as Upper Volta, has been producing gold for centuries. But after French colonization in the late 19th century, the wealth from its mines was largely extracted for European benefit. Even after independence in 1960, the economic system was designed to keep African resources flowing to Europe. The CFA franc, controlled by the French treasury, ensured that gold exports had to move through French financial systems. Contracts heavily favored Western companies, and local processing was almost non-existent. This new deal with Brazil breaks that pattern completely. It is the first time in Burkina Faso's history that a major gold export has bypassed Europe entirely in favor of a Latin American partner. If you think Europe didn't notice, think again. Within hours of the shipment's departure, European media outlets were buzzing. French commentators called it a provocation. Belgian economists warned of strategic resource loss. Some European Union officials even hinted at potential sanctions or reviewing aid agreements. But government was unfazed. Burkina Faso had already reduced its dependence on European aid, replacing it with new partnerships across Africa, Asia, and Latin America. 4. The message was clear. Burkina Faso's resources belong to its people, and we will choose our trade partners based on mutual respect, not historical obligation. While the exact terms remain confidential, sources close to the negotiation revealed that Brazil agreed to pay above market rates for the gold, recognizing Burkina Faso's right to fair compensation, provide technical support for modernizing Burkina Faso's gold refining industry, facilitate technology transfers for mining safety and environmental protection. Even more importantly, payments were made in BRICS currencies, bypassing the US dollar and the euro entirely. This is a quiet but powerful shift, a step towards de-dollarization in African trade. This move isn't just about Burkina Faso. It's a signal to the rest of Africa that new trade routes are possible. Already, whispers are spreading in Mali, Niger, and Guinea, all major gold producers, about following. As example, if even a handful of African nations redirect their gold exports away from Europe, the economic ripple effect could be enormous. Europe relies heavily on African gold not just for jewelry and industry, but for central bank reserves. Losing a steady supply would weaken its bargaining power. Brazil is not acting alone. As a BRICS member, it's part of a larger vision to create an alternative global economic system, with the recent inclusion of new members from the Middle East and Africa. BRICS is positioning itself as a counterweight to the G7. If more African nations start trading their raw materials within BRICS, the bloc's influence could rival or even surpass that of Western-led institutions like the IMF and World Bank. On the streets of Ouagadougou, reactions were overwhelmingly positive. At the central market, traders spoke of pride in seeing Burkina Faso stand tall. One miner from the gold-rich region of Bangu told reporters, "For years, we dug our gold and sent it to Europe. Now it's going somewhere that treats us as equals." Social media was flooded with messages of support, not just from citizens but from Africans across the continent. Has already hinted that this is just the beginning. Talks are underway to export cotton, manganese, and even agricultural products to Latin America and Asia under similar terms. Brazilian officials are reportedly exploring joint ventures in gold jewelry manufacturing, meaning more of the value chain could stay in Burkina Faso instead of being captured abroad. If successful, this could inspire a wave of resource nationalism across Africa, not in the sense of isolation, but in the sense of controlled, fair, and strategic trade. This is more than a trade deal. It's a symbolic break from centuries of economic dependence. By choosing Brazil over Europe, has not only diversified Burkina Faso's markets, he has also declared that Africa's resources will no longer be bound by old colonial trade routes. The gold shipment to Brazil may seem small in the grand scheme of global economics, but its political impact is monumental. It's a spark that could ignite a continental movement for economic sovereignty. And here on Afrique Vibe News, we'll be following every step of this new chapter because the story of Africa's rise is only just beginning.